In that park was a crack addict guy named Rudy. This newly minted APD police officer with the uniform, the belt, the baton, the gun, the taser, he's coming in and moving into the neighborhood, and he's letting Rudy know how the cow is going to eat the cabbage here, because he's here now. 20 years later, Rudy's still in that neighborhood. Rudy is still an addict, mentally ill. There is a texting deal within the neighborhood that when Rudy needs help, the smoke signals go up. If it's a cold and Rudy needs a coat and shoes, people figure out how to get Rudy the coat and the shoes. And he is a part of the neighborhood. He is a character within the neighborhood. He is a human being that the neighborhood is taking care of, not to fix and repair and get rid of, but to love on and care for, because he's part of who we are. And if you come into our neighborhood at the Community First Village, we have exactly the same thing. When we care for people, and that becomes our primary nature versus trying to cure them, because you can't be cured. Whatever your disability, if I get around your siblings or your parents or any significant other, and they go, tell me what really pisses you off about Austin. They're not fixing you of those things. Now, you might be able to learn more about that, moderate. If you're quick to a temper, maybe you can become less quick, but the idea that you would never have a temper will probably never go away. We have to learn how to love Rudy. That's what we have to do. We have to figure out how to love Rudy and care for Rudy. And if we do that, our neighborhoods are going to be a lot stronger. We're going to know each other better.
It makes me think of this encouragement my dad would always give growing up, particularly when us siblings were fighting or something bugged us about the other siblings. He'd say, Austin, love others, change yourself.
Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together.
Alan, I know you because shortly after I moved to Austin about 5 years ago, I was looking for a place to plug in volunteer-wise, and I was pointed to Community First, and I thought, man, this place is really bringing the power of community home, and it really left a mark on me, and so learned about you, and I'm really grateful to have you on the show today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
I want to walk through your story a little bit and what has made you the man you are and what has led to the birth of Community First. Let's talk about, where did you come from? What was your upbringing and your origin like?
Grew up in the Houston, was born in Houston. Mom, dad, 3 brothers. Mom was profoundly mentally ill. And the only memory that I have of my mom and my father as a husband and wife under the same roof was when I was about 4 years old, so probably 1959, with a knife in her hands, threatening my dad. And then next thing I know, my mom's in the hospital. And while my mom was in the hospital, my dad chose to divorce her and unleashed what I call the Armageddon of a custody battle for my brothers and me. But while my mother was in the hospital, she was subjected to the most powerful psychotropic drugs ever invented by man at the time, as well as electric shock therapy. But my mom had something going for her that I think was formative to my future, and that is that she had a mom and dad that loved her very much, loved her 4 boys, and my grandparents were pretty heavily resourced. So they were able to do 2 things for my mom. One, get her into the finest mental health care that the world could provide at that time, a place called Minniger's. They were also able to hire the finest legal counsel to battle my father so that my mother would never be stripped of her maternal rights. And so that was pretty formative. But by the time I was in the 8th grade, things were imploding pretty bad. And I ended up living with my dad and my stepmother. And we ultimately moved to Alvin, Texas, where I finished my junior high and high school years there.
I mean, the words that come to mind when you describe what was going on with your mom and then tension with your dad, like turbulent, turmoil, tension. What was that doing to you, and how were you acting and moving, and maybe your brothers as well?
Well, it probably impacted each of us in different ways. As chaotic as it might sound, it seemed like my normal life. When I was in 3rd grade, my mom went back to the hospital for quite a long time. We went to live with my dad and stepmother. She gets out. We go back with my mom. When I look back on it, it was very chaotic because my mother had no capability really of raising 4 boys in the 60s and 70s. There was no discipline, happening at that time. In fact, on Easter Sunday, 1970, March 29th, I had 2 tickets to see Led Zeppelin on their Led Zeppelin 2 tour. And I was arrested for stealing cars. And so, it was chaotic, but there were moments throughout all of those periods where there was salvation. So it was pretty interesting. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, that seems like a crazy transition, or kind of two seemingly at odds forces, chaotic and moments of salvation. Maybe talk more about that. And was there a season where you felt you were kind of finding your footing in life? Like, these are, formative years in a young man's development.
Well, I don't know if there's ever moments that you're not trying to find your footing for any of us as human beings. So when I was arrested, I was in the Harris County Juvenile Detention Center, and my mother was in the middle of another mental health breakdown, and there was nobody to come and get me out of that deal. I learned and surmised later on that my father was going to come get me, but wanted me to marinate in that place for a couple of weeks, which he did. And he finally came and got me. And then we moved to Alvin, Texas, and that created a somewhat of a level of stability for really a pretty ADD, entrepreneurial, my way or the highway kind of mentality. So I muddled my way through that. The stability really came in my life in 1981 when I started dating my now wife, Tricia. And that was probably the greatest, one of the greatest miracles that ever happened in my life. So,
man, what a gift! How did y'all meet?
She was in her last year at the University of Texas, and she was clerking at a law firm that I was a customer of, and I was there with a buddy of mine to meet with the lawyer on some real estate stuff that we were doing. And she needed some help moving a 5-drawer lateral file cabinet. And we were the victims of that deal. And so it all kind of started with a 5-drawer lateral file cabinet and a love of cats.
I love that. And so meanwhile, while this relationship is developing, your vocation is kind of taking this, as I understand, like a quite wild path to the calling you're operating in now. Walk us through that journey a little bit.
Well, I came to Austin in 1976 it'll be 50 years this June. I moved here and to go to school here at UT, and it didn't succeed in that deal. I'm not an academically gifted person. Just don't like to study, and I'm learned, but not academically. And so in 1978, I was working in a photomat kiosk, which was a little about the size of this table. And people would drive up and drop off film canisters to be processed, and it was a typical job of that nature, horrible. And a buddy of mine drove up in a brand new 1978 Mercury Marquis, white, wearing a suit, air conditioning blowing on him. He's in the real estate business, and that looked appealing to me. So I made a decision, went and got a real estate license, and went and gotten business with him, and that was a game changer for me. I learned how to pronounce and spell the word entrepreneur. And for kind of an ADD entrepreneurial type of personality, that started to fit me pretty well.
And in that kind of first jump into a real career trajectory, what were you noticing in that realm that you're like, man, yeah, this is me, I love this? And what were maybe some things where you're like, I don't know?
Well, what I loved was the idea that I could get rich in this business, and so I admired people like Trammell Crow out of Dallas, Texas, which was a honking real estate developer, and believe it or not, Donald Trump out of New York City. I mean, he was big in those days, and at some point in time, had written The Art of the Deal, and so I wanted to operate at that level. So I really worked hard at trying to ascend my career into that level. And as in normal career growth, there's the ebb and flow, or the roller coaster of the events. There's seasons of great earnings, and then moments of oh my God, I'm on the verge of bankruptcy here. But at the end of the day, it all worked out. So I had over a 20 plus year career doing that, pretty successful overall life.
And early in that, when you were you had that photo kiosk moment, you saw the guy in the Mercury. Were you with Trish at that time?
No,
Okay.
no, that would have been 1978. We didn't meet till probably maybe late 80, and started dating in February 1981.
What did the beginning of building a life together in Austin look like with you and Trish?
Well, we were partners. She was the steady Eddie of the family, the far more conservative one that gave me the flexibility to be able to go out and do the crazy things that I wanted to do. So in a lot of ways, if I look back on it, it was a match made in heaven.
That's beautiful. And what were people around you like? What did rhythms of community look like in the early years of marriage and family?
I've been a kind of a networker and a promoter all my life, so we had built some pretty good friend sets, and I ran and put myself into people sets, the people that could help. We lived in Westlake Hills. We bought our first home there. I wanted to be in the middle of where the things were, and where people could help. I was heavily involved in the community, chambers of commerce, civic endeavors, stuff like that. Ultimately, in church, when we started having children, church became a thing.
What were you just wired to want to be involved in these different things, chambers of commerce, different initiatives? Was that just, oh, I'm Alan Graham, this is what I do? Or what was maybe the mentality behind that for you?
It's I think that there's an inherent component of I don't know how to describe it other than saying there's this inherent desire on my part to lead. I served on student council, president of my class, president of the German club, president of an organization called TARS in high school. When I got into the business world, I got involved in like the Kiwanis Club. I became a Kiwanian of the Year. I've got this plaque. I've got 1 million trophies and plaques over the course, but this is the only one that is visibly present in my office. The Kiwanian of the Year, I think it was in 1982, because I called my dad, who, had a lot of frustrating times, with me growing up. And I said, Dad, I want to tell you that I've been selected as Kiwanian of the Year by my peers in my Kiwanis Club. And there's this pause in silence on the phone. And at some point in time, my father said, that's really great, son, from Juvenile Delinquent of the Year to Kiwanian of the Year. So I look at that plaque to always remind me of where I came from. And that no matter how many accolades you get over life, you still came from here. And it's just kind of a beautiful reminder. So, I think in a lot of ways I just had those kind of leadership qualities. That's what people tell me anyway.
This show is supported by Loyal Home Concierge. You can take a company public, but you just found a scorpion in the guest room. Welcome to Austin. We'll handle it. LoyalHomeConcierge.com.
Yeah, well, maybe this is something that's hard to define or put words to, but this natural orientation to lead, like, to what end, or what's the why behind that? Like, is that it's just your knee-jerk reflex reaction, or is there something in you that stirs up, or what's going on there that has you operating that way? And it's, I would say, an unusual way to be in the world.
Well, I think people are impacted by a couple of things. One is vision, and the other one is passion. And people want to follow passionate visionaries. And if you're saying, look, I want to be a rich real estate mogul, and you're laying out a vision and a pathway to do that, and you're passionate about, you're living, eating, and breathing that basically 24/7, which I did, there's going to be people that are going to jump on your train and they want to go along for that ride. And so I think there are characteristics. When I shared with Tricia, who you have to understand is married to a entrepreneur and been up and down the roller coaster with me. In 1998, when I got the courage to share with her the idea for Mobile Loaves Fishes, she just looked at me, brother, and said, "Oh my God, here we go again." And it wasn't like, oh shit. It was, I know you're on point, and I know you got an idea, and we're going. Oh my God, here we go again. not knowing whether it was something that was ever going to turn into anything or not. We didn't know. But it didn't matter because there was a vision there and the passion to do that. And then as we began to share that idea with other people, people just jumped on board. And here we are 28 years later, having really created a movement around the United States.
Yeah, I want to definitely go into more of that origin story and how it's evolved to what it is now. But those two big words you use, vision and passion, say more on that. Like, are those innate qualities in you? Are those things you go out and you fuel them and then those enable your ability to lead? How did those things get instilled within you?
Well, I don't know what the complete, answer to that is. I'm a dreamer, and I'm willing to pay the price to see dreams come true. I don't mind failure. In fact, I completely embrace failure. If something doesn't work, that's good news. And I think people are intimidated by that. Over the course of my life, I'm a very positive and optimistic human being, and I've always been that way. But I fueled that through reading and listening to audio tapes of, some of the great motivators of all time history. The godfather of that whole movement is a guy named Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. I tell everybody to read that book, published in 1937. It's one of the greatest books ever written. And then follow along or people like, Carnegie and Tracy and, the current people, Tony Robbins and these kind of guys that manifest the power of positive thinking. And I just consumed that type of stuff. And I think human beings, other human beings and other dreamer human beings want to be around people that are positive. Hey, how was your day? Man, my day was awesome. How was your holidays? We had a great time, on that. It was crappy, didn't have a good time, got in a fight with my wife, No, that's not what people want to hear. They want to hear, the good stuff that's going on. And when you exude that, they want to get behind you and follow you. So that's, but there's got to be some DNA in that deal somewhere.
Well, I appreciate that orientation of being hungry for wisdom and diving into the audiobooks and the counsel of others to inform your own path. And speaking of your path, the starting of Mobile Loaves and Fishes, quite a departure from being a real estate mogul. What were the seeds of that, and how did that come about?
Started having babies, 1987. We have 4 biological children and then another child that we raised that was the niece of Tricia, the daughter of her sister that we brought into our house. And at some point in time, I don't remember exactly when, probably early 90s, at the maybe the earliest, very late 80s, Tricia started going back and taking the kids to church, at least a couple of them. I don't remember how many we had at the time. And both of us are, and I hate the term workaholic, but we work. We work 7 days a week. It's not a day that goes by that we're not working. And if I'm in Europe on a beautiful European vacation, man, I'm it's not 100% vacation. And normally on a Sunday, I'd get up in the morning, I'd watch the little talking heads, read the newspaper, and then go into the office and spend a couple hours getting ready for the week. And one time, the door opened, and there she's going out the door with a couple of the kids going to a mass. And it looked like the train was leaving the station. And I thought to myself, shit, I got to go do this deal. My brothers and I felt abandoned by our father. He wasn't an abusive guy. He always was there financially, but he wasn't there from an emotional point of view because there was separation. And I didn't want that for my kids. So I said, I got to do this. If I'm going to do it, I want to understand why I'm doing it. So I developed a very intellectual relationship with Christ and just started studying the history of the church. And I became enamored with what I call the train wreck of the 2,000-year history of the church. The heresies, the schisms, the reformations, the wars, the murders, the plunder, just all the things that could possibly happen in the context of a failed human existence has happened within the Christian church. Yet here we are 2,000 years later, and the corpus of that thing is still intact. The gates of hell have not prevailed against it. So intellectually, I got into that, Wow. And I just began to study the whole thing, and I fell in love with it. And then in 1996, I went on a men's retreat. And at my church called Christ Renews His Parish. And I will tell you that had they told me going into this deal that guys were going to hold hands with each other and pray and, God forbid, do that bromance hugging it out thing, I would have never gone. But I show up at this 30-hour, 2-day weekend thing, and man, right away it's hand holding and bromance, hugging, and I
You didn't run though.
I wanted to run, and I couldn't figure out an escape hatch that kept my ego intact, bottom line. And these men would get up and they'd give these testimonies and they would vomit out some of the most putrid, sinful stuff that you could possibly imagine. And I want to go up and pat them on the back and go, hey, bro, you ought to keep that stuff in the deepest, darkest recesses of your skeleton closet. We don't need to hear that. But then they would connect it to forgiveness, reconciliation, healing, and redemption. And over the course of this 30-hour period, there's 10 of these witnesses. Not all of them as extreme as I'm describing. And it was transformative. And the intellectual relationship that I had with Christ dropped a floor into the depths of the cave of my heart. And at that point, hell, I'd go home that night. And, I'm chatting it up with my wife like I've never chatted it up before. And I began to ask God, what do you want me to do? And I will tell you, that's a dangerous question to ask God. What do you want me to do? I'm sure he's up there laughing, Oh boy, yeah, exactly. And, and I'm asking that question going, look up. I'll be a Eucharistic minister or a liturgist at church. I'll cook barbecue with the Knights of Columbus, stuff like that. I wasn't asking to blow off my now ascending real estate career because at this point it's starting to smoke in a very positive way. And one thing led to another, to a point of the idea of going out and buying a food truck and serving the homeless on the street corners out of a catering truck got into my brain. And then at that point, Katie barred the door. Now, 28 years later, we're here.
That's amazing. And was there a moment where that particular need struck you?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Yeah, coffee with Trish and I were having with a girlfriend of ours. And this girlfriend was talking about a ministry in Corpus Christi, Texas, that on cold winter nights, this would have been about the springtime of 98, where on cold winter nights, multiple churches, cross-denomination, would pool resources and take out to the men and women that were on the streets. And at that moment, the image out of my subconscious mind of a catering truck, like the Mobile Loaves and Fishes truck, exactly how it looks today. That image of that truck got into my conscious mind as a distribution vehicle from those of us that have abundance to be able to travel to those that lacked abundance. And, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I went to bed that night. I didn't share the idea. I went to bed that night. I thought that idea was brilliant. But, if you're an entrepreneur, every idea is a brilliant idea. And then I woke up the next morning, the thing wouldn't get out of my mind. I thought it was brilliant and that we could franchise this all over the United States. And within a week or two, I finally got the courage to share it with Tricia, because I knew, I felt like I was onto something, and she's got to be in. And then I started sharing it with friends, and again, it just took off. It worked. Turned out to be a good idea.
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay, the stonemason sent a PDF. The plumber wants a check. Wait, who is Dave on Venmo? Is that the woodworker or the tool rental? Oh my gosh. Stop playing forensic accountant with your own renovation. With Loyal, you get one consolidated invoice. We manage the vendors and the paperwork. One bill, zero confusion. Loyal Home Concierge.
Was there a shifting point where kind of that became a focus and maybe real estate was in the rear view? I mean, as you mentioned, like companies kind of giving off smoke at this point, like it's getting hot. How did you navigate that, and what did that shift look like?
Well, we bought the first truck, and it became a huge success at church. It cost us to buy a second truck in probably 2001. So put the first truck in operation in 99. And then by 01, we bought the second truck. 2002, other churches are wanting to do this, And so a third and fourth truck got planted at two other communities here in Austin. And along this pathway, I became enamored with this deal. And my love of God, my love of Christ, and my falling in love with the brokenness of the folks that were on the streets was just growing in a big way. And I'm just losing interest. It's like the dog in the movie Up when it's, squirrel. Now, I'm looking over here and not paying as much attention to this over here. It's not filling me the way that I wanted to be filled, and this appears to be filling me. Certainly wasn't filling me economically, but it was filling me emotionally and filling my family, and filling hundreds and hundreds of people that were volunteering on this thing. And so really by 2003, I was pretty much done, decided to sell most of my stuff, and we had enough money to live on for a couple of years while we tried to build this thing. So,
The all-in moment. You mentioned serving folks that are experiencing brokenness. Can you remember maybe in those early years, individual interactions or experiences that were really shaping for you?
well, there were many of those. In 2003, we started going on what we call street retreats, and that's where a group of us would be dropped off in downtown Austin, and we'd spend 72 hours on the street. So the first one was May of 2003. And so we're dropped off at Woolridge Park. We're kind of hanging there. We got our backpacks and stuff. Trying to look homeless, but you're not. My skin, I mean, it's, I've got all my teeth. I hadn't been rode hard, hung up wet. And we're sitting there in the park, and I've got my 14, 15-year-old oldest son with me, and then a lawyer friend of mine is with me. This homeless guy comes up and just looks at us incredulously and says, "What are you assholes doing here?" Well, we're on this street retreat, thing, and we want to experience what it's like to be homeless. He's kind of laughing. He goes, "Do you guys want to go dumpster diving with me tonight?" And so, in my mind, the only thing that I think about dumpster diving is diving for food. That, we're going to go and eat out of dumpsters. And, my answer is not only no, but it's hell no, But before I could respond, my 14, 15-year-old son said, "Yeah." And so the next thing I know, we're pushing an HEB grocery cart, a buggy, through the entire downtown, jumping in and out of dumpsters, harvesting recyclables for hours. And it was absolutely amazing. That guy, JP, lives across the street from me in the village right now. He's still, today, one of the greatest dumpster divers ever in the history of the world. My house is decorated by crap that's come out of no telling how many dumpsters. Rusty gold from all around the house. Old Coca-Cola signs, farm implements, Bugatti hubcaps from 1929.
Wild. What? I'm a fellow dumpster diver. Growing up, it looked a little bit differently for us, but my buddies and I would go to had a neighboring construction sites on the weekend. We'd dive in there and we'd scrounge up enough materials to make a skateboard ramp or a fort or something. And it was all fun until I got, nailed through the shoe and had to get a tetanus shot. But yeah, dumpster diving.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
No, that's what it was, man. And it was hard work. And I realized the entrepreneurial work ethic of the men and women that lived on the street. It was very impactful.
So you're seeing this groundswell building, more trucks in the field. You got all in 2003. What were you seeing of people around you, maybe at the church or others getting involved? Like, what was going on in them as they're diving into Mobile Loaves or participating?
Well, you're moving from a guy that raises millions of dollars to do real estate deals, a guy that's flying to Boston and New York working with bond houses to do tax exempt, bond deals to build stuff on airports, to a guy that's got a catering truck or a roach coach that's now feeding homeless people. So you had that population going, what, WTF, what is going on? At a church perspective, I'm a member of a high income Catholic parish. Most of my friends from that parish are upper middle class and above, and at the point that we're in ministry, we're not earning any money. So, cars that we're driving had to drop in extreme value. So, we're driving used cars or donated cars or things like that. So you would have people on the outside looking in going, what is going on? Still living the Westlake life, but trying to do it, with wind pudding and rabbit tracks. And I was talking to some friends years later, and they go, every time we got together and partied with everybody, y'all are always the talk of the town. And I go, why? And he goes, everybody was envious that you guys could do that. And we couldn't separate ourselves from our Mercedes or Lexus but you guys were able to, drive these beaters and stuff. So there was a myriad of impacts, that I find interesting in those early years, to, what it is today, and people's perception of me today.
That's a beautiful perspective that people had, though. I love that that's the portrait they saw of you and Trisha. That's really
well. So some saw that portrait, others saw probably complete stupidity. So it was both. Yeah.
In this time, in this season where you've gone all in on Mobile Loaves, you've departed from the real estate career, you're starting to drive these used cars. Do you have other people around you other than Trisha that were supported? Do you have a friend network or folks at church? Like, what did kind of your crew around you look like if there was one?
Well, there was a core group of founders of Mobile Loaves Fishes. I had the idea, outside of, my family. My best buddy is a guy named Bruce Agnes. And he was really one of the original investors. He committed the first $500. I committed the second $500 to starting the ministry. He's one of the original founders. And then there were three other guys that jumped in with us on that deal. And then along the way, God has brought other people into my life. So many, it's just hard to name, but one of those, a guy named Brian McClure and his family came in. So there were angels that God sent into my life that frankly sustained us. I mean, there were a couple of Christmases where I would get in the mail an anonymous $5,000 cashier's check. I have suspicions, but I don't know for a fact who did that. But that's pretty powerful.
Beautiful, generous.
Somebody, yeah.
So this thing, Mobile Loaves and Fishes, has really evolved and grown over the years. What has it become, and what can you share about that path and that journey?
Well, it's still becoming. it's become an organization that I believe understands greater than any other organization the pandemic of homelessness. And we believe very profoundly that the single greatest cause to this pandemic is a profound catastrophic loss of family. Because I know you, I know the women that are behind me, and everybody that's going to listen or watch this podcast have a dope addict, an alcoholic, or somebody battling a mental health issue in their family. Nobody that I've ever met has escaped the crazy Uncle Louie. And somehow, for me, it was my mama. And then my little brother. I have a younger brother. I'm the third of 4 boys, and the youngest one's had some big issues in his life. And somehow the families, no matter how dysfunctional that is able to come up underneath those things. But for a very small percentage of our population, less than 1% of 1%, it looks like a lot because we see it on all the street corners and underneath our bridges. No family and no extended family or forged family to come up underneath and help them along the way. And so I think foundationally we've created a movement that is recognizing that the mitigation of this pandemic has got to be from a human-to-human, heart-to-heart perspective, a relational perspective, and not a transactional perspective. We need the transaction. I'm not diminishing transaction like building housing. But we have to figure out how to build community and rebuild the forged family if we're unable to reconnect people back to the nuclear family.
As you described, folks that don't have that family structure behind them, I'm thinking through, like, what would I think or feel if that were me? And I just can't imagine not having a support network.
Well, it's not even... It even goes beyond not having the support network. I mean, what would it be like if you didn't have the support network and your father, when you were 12 years old, was selling you to other men? Or as a woman, what if your first sexual encounter was with your father, your brothers and your uncles, and there's a level of trauma in this particular population of people that God has called us to serve that is really almost beyond human understanding of what people are capable of. I have great friends whose parents, think about this, would give their 4 or 5-year-old children heroin, opiates, to put them out so they could party. That's the level of trauma that I'm talking about. All of us experience trauma. Hell, your father might have beat you up, but I'm guessing he didn't sell you at 12. People have been chained in closets and deprived of food as a child. It's a cataclysmic, traumatic situation that's almost not understandable, and you don't recover from that. There's no healing. There's no that's out of my mind. Like surgery. I had open heart surgery 5 years ago. I don't even think about it. I think they're not going into your brain and twiddling around with things. And you go, oh, my memories of my father are great now. No. And so I think we brought to light the true, and are bringing to light the true understanding of this pandemic, and that we have to readjust how we're going to address it so that it has a far more human connection.
Okay, the stonemason sent a PDF. The plumber wants a check. Wait, who is Dave on Venmo? Is that the woodworker or the tool rental? Oh my gosh. Stop playing forensic accountant with your own renovation. With Loyal, you get one consolidated invoice. We manage the vendors and the paperwork. One bill, zero confusion. Loyal Home Concierge.
You mentioned the power of relationship to enter into that brokenness and bring healing for an individual or a group of folks experiencing deep brokenness, like some of the anecdotes you shared. What does the beginning of that look like relationally? Like, how do you enter into that and you start to kind of plant these seeds of relationship?
Well, relationships aren't that complicated. It's, it's first, hey, my name's Alan Graham. What's your name?
Austin Clemens.
Austin. It's great to meet you, brother. Where'd you grow up?
Santa Barbara, California.
Santa Barbara, California, man. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and Alvin, Texas. How many siblings do you have?
Sir?
Yeah. It begins, in a very similar way. The most important word in the English language to Austin Clemens is Austin. Singularly, the most important word to you. Not love, any of these other. It's Austin. When somebody goes, hey, Austin. Yeah, no. They call you, hey, Alan. And so what happens if you're a drug addict, you live on the streets 9 years, you got no teeth, you look at some guy from Westlake Hills comes in some truck and's got some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches out there, But the first thing that we do is I extend my hand and I say, my name's Alan. What's your name? You go, Austin. Austin. That's awesome. What would you like to eat tonight? We have meat and cheese, peanut butter and jelly. We have milk, fruit, juice. We have boiled eggs. What kind of chips would you like? Would you like a banana, an apple, an orange? And go down the line. Okay. There's several things that are unfolding at that moment. And one is we're connected right there, human to human, heart to heart. You are being served and you're making choice. But here's the magic. If I show up a month later back at that site with that truck and I see you over there, and somehow, for some reason, I was capable of remembering your name, and I yell across, hey, Austin, and that head turns, okay, and you happen to remember my name, the relationship at that moment between you and I as human beings is transformed.
Mm.
And so that's how relationships work. If you shared something with me, like your mom was dying or, something like that, like, man, Austin, I kind of remember last time that your mom was having some problems. What's going on? Well, man, I'm sorry to say that my brother let me know that she passed. And, bro, I'm sorry. Can I pray for you? I mean, this is how that stuff works, and then we build relationships. We call it putting pennies in a jar. You come into my office, there's a jar full of pennies. Of course, I don't know if they're worthless or extremely valuable today. It's hard to say. But I'm always doing things, positive things for people. That's called putting a penny in the jar. It's putting a penny in the jar of the Austin Allen relationship. I'm here doing your podcast. I got a penny in the Austin jar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's a handful of pennies in my jar.
Well, and but it could be in our relationship in the future at some point in time. I've got to take some of those pennies out and spend them because Austin misbehaved, or I've got to do something. But if I built up enough pennies in the jar, I'm married for over 41 years. We've been together for 45 years. We had 5 children in this whole deal. There's been some conflicts in that period of time. But I have a pretty extraordinarily tight family. And we can really grind each other into the ground and laugh it off. That's what we're trying to achieve. That's the pennies in the jar. Sometimes going to take some out. Yeah.
What's a great gift to have a family like that. I feel like this is a natural segue to what encouragement would you give to the average Austinite?
I look at Austin, Texas as our home. I don't look at the house that I live in as my home. This entire community is my home. And we're foundationally called to steward our home. How do we steward our home? And how do we steward all the things that are in our home, the people that are in our home, the resources that are in our home? And I would begin to look at what the real meaning of home is, which turns out not to be 4 walls and a roof. It's far deeper than that. Most people that are listening to this probably don't know the people that live in their neighborhood. You ought to go out and begin to meet and learn who lives in your neighborhood. That'd be the kind of thing that I would. But most of us are living in what we call a hermetically sealed single-family sarcophagus that we call the American dream, with an 8-foot tall privacy fence, a swimming pool, sport court, and a barbecue pit in the backyard, and the internet spewing in. And we've isolated ourselves from each other. We don't know each other anymore. It's not how I grew up. We all got on our bikes in the summertime and rode to a community pool, and there were 100 kids all peeing in the pool at the same time. Glorious memories.
Oh, yeah.
Getting in fights with your buddies over some girl that you thought you were going to marry when you were 10. All those beautiful memories that formed who we were. We have to restore that human-to-human, heart-to-heart connection of people.
I love that encouragement. And I get excited about thinking, what would Austin be like if everyone acted on just that get-to-know-your-neighbor encouragement? Man, how vibrant would neighborhoods and the whole city be if there was such cross-pollination and intersection of relationship? The people knew what was going on in one another's worlds and could do things together and, unite their kids. And
well, I had an interesting conversation probably in 2019, 2020 with a Austin police officer. Can't think of his name. I think it was Lawrence, last name or first name, was put in charge of leading the issue of homelessness within APD. He was at the time, I believe, a 20-year veteran police officer with APD. He had, early in his career as a rookie, he had bought a home in a neighborhood called Colony Park, not too far from where the village is. And in that park was a crack addict and maybe homeless, maybe not, maybe sometimes guy named Rudy. And this newly minted APD police officer with the uniform, the belt, the baton, the gun, the cuffs, the taser, he's coming in and moving into the neighborhood, and he's letting Rudy know how the cow is going to eat the cabbage here, because he's here now. 20 years later, Rudy's still in that neighborhood. Rudy is still an addict, mentally ill. There is a texting, calling deal within the neighborhood that when Rudy needs help, the smoke signals go up. If it's a cold and Rudy needs a coat and shoes, people figure out how to get Rudy the coat and the shoes. And he is a part of the neighborhood. He is a character within the neighborhood. He is a human being that the neighborhood is taking care of, not to fix and repair and get rid of, but to love on and care for, because he's part of who we are. And if you come into our neighborhood at the Community First Village, we have exactly the same thing going on. It's unbelievable. And when we care for people, and that becomes our primary nature versus trying to cure them, because you can't be cured. Whatever your disability, if I get around your siblings or your parents or any significant other, and they go, tell me what really pisses you off about Austin. But I don't know what it is, but I'm promising you.
There's a list there.
There's a thing there. They're not fixing you of those things. Now, you might be able to learn more about that and moderate. If you're quick to a temper, maybe you can become less quick, but the idea that you would never have a temper will probably never go away. My wife, who I love dearly and I make fun of her all the time, you could put $1 billion in $100 bills on a pallet wrapped in cellophane at a location, and for her to collect it, all she had to do was get there on time. Couldn't make that happen. Now, she probably would for a bill, but, and I'm embellishing the fact that it's almost impossible for her to arrive on time. Whereas I'm sitting out in my car at 12:27. I'm not going to be late. If I go to the airport, it's 2 hours ahead of time. I'm going to have my Starbucks. I'm going to be sitting down in that chair, and I will have not a worry. I've been through security. I will not have a worry in the world. Okay. When a meeting starts at Mobile Loaves Fishes that I'm involved in, it starts at the moment that the Apple Watch secondhand hits that deal. Everybody knows that. So, it's different, and so we have to learn how to love Rudy. That's what we have to do. We have to figure out how to love Rudy and care for Rudy. And if we do that, our neighborhoods are going to be a lot stronger. We're going to know each other better.
I love that. It makes me think of this encouragement my dad would always give growing up, particularly when, us siblings were fighting or something bugged us about the other siblings. He'd say, Austin, love others, change yourself. Because he would see me trying to, fix my siblings or get them to do this thing or stop doing the thing that I didn't like. And so that's really been ingrained in me, and something I remember when someone acts a different way that maybe frustrates me or gets under my skin, I'm like, I have a lot of issues too, and I have a decision here. Love them, change myself. And then I also love the other piece about kind of the Rudies of the world. It's that's an awareness piece of, looking around and being aware of our community, aware of the people around us, not just.
Well, we have become intolerant, and we have to learn how to become tolerant. I mean, all you got to do is look at the political world we live in today. We're just intolerant. We're intolerant of people who think differently than we are. I don't know.
Well, you let this was really powerful encouragement sound, and I want to encourage listeners, particularly those here in Austin, to get out to Community First Village or jump in with volunteering with Mobile Loaves. Awesome opportunities just to see the power of community to bring healing and connection and just do amazing things in our city. And, it's been so powerful here in Austin that the world knows about Community First Village and what's happening here because of the transformative power of community that it's had. So really grateful for you to be on the show today.
It's been great. Thanks, Austin. I'd love to have people out. So come on.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. If this conversation sparked something in you, a new idea, a feeling of connection, or just a good laugh, pass it on. Share this episode with a fellow Austinite or a loved one who needs to hear it. Let's keep weaving this fabric of community together. This show is proudly presented by Loyal Home Concierge. At Loyal, we believe that a healthy, thriving city starts within the four walls of your home. We are passionate about supporting overextended executives, the moms and dads who do it all, and the couples who take life by storm. Because we know that when your home life is supported, you are free to support the ones who matter most.
Your kids, your wife.
Whether you need a proactive manager for your home or a creative problem solver for your next big adventure, we are here to help you design a life of intention. LoyalHomeConcierge.com. Let's make life a little more beautiful together. Stay loyal to your community, and we'll see you next time.